Hello, and welcome to the second episode in our series of ComfyUI for professional creatives. In this episode, we're going to talk about an image-to-image workflow. So that's for when you have an existing image and you want to use that to generate new ones with the help of AI. So to get started, I'm on InstaSD and I'm going to start a new instance of ComfyUI from scratch. So I'll just give it a name. And I will pick one of my favorite models. You can find all of these on Cibit AI. And let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Great. Let me go ahead and hide this doc. And since we don't have an existing workflow, ComfyUI is going to open this pop-up to give us some of the basic workflows that we can get started with. And here, let's look at image to image for this episode. Ignore that. So this workflow right here is very similar to the one that we were looking at in the previous episode. And if you haven't watched that, it's going to be in the same playlist as this video when it's published on YouTube. So you can go ahead and check out the previous episode if you haven't seen it yet. The main difference here is that previously, when we wanted to use this workflow, we were feeding our K-sampler with something called an empty latent. And that empty latent image was basically the size of, we said that was kind of our blank canvas. And we would set a size for that latent image, which was empty. We would feed it into the K-sampler, and then we would get an image out that would be the same size. So in this case, we're not creating an empty latent image. We're basically loading an existing image and then converting it to a latent image, and then feeding that into the K-sampler. But other than that, everything here is exactly the same as what we've seen previously in the last episode. So let me go ahead and choose the model that I actually downloaded here, because the default workflow will have the name of a model hard-coded. So to get started here, I'm going to use a prompt that's very similar to the Cyborg prompt that we were using for the last episode. I'm going to put my negative prompt in here too. There we go. I've just adjusted this prompt to be more of a cyborg dog. And I'm just going to drag in a picture of my dog here. This is Coco. Okay. And let's see what we get. I've also gone ahead and fixed the seed. So that way we can only see the changes based on everything else that we're changing. So let's go ahead and let's see what we get here. Okay, here we go. So as you can see, we got a cool looking little cyborg dog, but this has absolutely nothing to do with our original image that we uploaded, except for the dimensions. It has kept the 1024 by 1024, so it has kept the dimension, but it has kept nothing else from the original photo. So why is that? Well, this has something to do with this factor here, which is something we didn't talk about last time, this denoise ratio. And what this denoise is it has something to do with the way that diffusion models work under the hood. Basically, what they do is they fill the image with a lot of noise, and then they seek the description that you gave them from amongst the noise. So they keep denoising step by step until they find what you have described here. So if you have an original starting image, but they fill it completely with noise, they're going to lose that original starting image. And this denoise ratio of 1, which is 100%, is telling us exactly that. So if we wanted to really retain the original image, we would give it a very low number, like 0.1. Let's see what we get now. So as you can see, this is basically the same thing as the original image. It has not modified it at all. So it's usually best to start with something that's a little bit more in the middle, just to see what we can get by mixing a little bit of the original image with the prompt that we gave it. There you go. So now, as you can see, we're basically keeping that original composition as we pick a denoise ratio that's somewhere in the middle. We've got these green elements. Now they've turned into leaves. Their general composition of the scene has remained the same, but it's starting to introduce these elements from our prompt. So the dog is wearing a little like cyborg vest, and I think as I increase this denoise ratio, we will get more of the elements from our prompt into the image. And there we go. Now we have a cyborg dog that is sitting there. Still, the composition was generally kept the same. Now, one of the things that you want to be mindful of when working with anything with ComfyUI where you have to introduce your own images is essentially the size of the image and what your model is capable of working on. So this model that we're using is basically an SDXL or Stable Diffusion XL model. So it started with SDXL, and then somebody has gone ahead and like fine-tuned it and merged it with other models and essentially made something with some desirable characteristics here. We won't get into that for now. But generally, SDXL images work with a from 768 to 768 to 1024 by 1024. These are kind of the dimensions that SDXL works with best. So if I go ahead and give it another image, this is a very large image, so it'll take a while to upload. There we go. So you can see the dimensions here, 4898, 30 by 3265. Let's see what we get now. Now you'll notice that every step, this is going to take quite some time because it's working with a much larger image. So that took a long time, and as you can see, there's a lot of distortions here. And the reason is because the dimensions of the image that we're working with is just not compatible with the model that we're using. So I have the same image, and I have actually resized it to 1024. Let me just drop that in here. So now it's using that image where the smaller size is 1024. And let me run this again. I can see everything is going to go very snappy. And there you go. So this is something that makes a little bit more sense, even though for this one, we probably want to reduce or increase the denoise ratio, actually. There you go. So it's going very fast, and it's actually generating something that makes a lot more sense than in the original image. So if you are working with a very large image, there are nodes that you can use to essentially resize it. So make sure you're always working with images that are of the size that makes sense for your model. One of those nodes is this node called upscale image, and it's always packaged with ComfyUI. And if I just pick the big one here, this is my large size bulldog image. I can drag in the image into that node. I can set the size that I want. So I'm going to say the width is the larger side, and the height is going to be 1024. And now I'm going to use this to encode it into a latent image. There you go, and that disconnects my original load image node. And now even with my large image, as we can see, I'm still getting a 1536 by 1024 image size outcome and a good result, because now I'm using a size that is appropriate for my model. And you can also decide to apply some cropping if, let's say, you wanted to keep it square. There you go. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk to you about is LoRAs. Now, what LoRa's are basically smaller models that you can download, and what they're not complete image generation models themselves, but what they can do is they can tweak certain elements of the base model. So in this case, this albedo base model that we're using, if we use a LoRa, we can essentially tweak certain elements about it. Now, those elements can be a particular style. So we can have a LoRa that is trained on one particular type of art, and it can regenerate that. Could be like anime or cartoon characters or anything. The other thing that we can do with LoRas is we can train a LoRa on particular objects or people. So if you're doing, say, product photography, or if you're doing headshots for particular characters, you can essentially train a LoRa so that you can reliably get that same character or that same object out in your images, and it'll understand them very well. So we can go to Civit AI and search for LoRas here, and you can basically filter them. We're using an SDXL base model, so the LoRa that we use has to be compatible with that. So I've gone ahead and selected this here, and I'm also searching just for LoRa's. I'm not searching for anything else. So let's find one that we like. This looks pretty cool. I've never used this one before. We can find out how it works together. So you can see that this is what I was talking about with LoRa's that are trained on particular styles. So this produces images of glass sculptures. So let me go ahead and download this just so we can experiment. Now to add a LoRa, I'm going to instaSD to my running instance. I'm going to click on View Files. I'm going to open the models directory, and I'm going to add a file to this LoRa's directory. Here you can see I already had a LoRa in this instance, but I'm going to add a new one. And because we're downloading from Civit AI, I'm just going to pick this tab, and I'm going to paste the link here. And instaSD is going to add it to my running Comfy instance. And while it's doing that, let's look at the trigger words here. So LoRa's will only take effect if you put certain trigger words in your prompt. So in this case, the trigger word seems to be translucent and transparent. Let's have a look at the prompts that are shared here for these images. So detailed and vibrant portrait of glass sculpture. This might actually be a trigger word as well, I'm not sure. Fantastic landscape with vibrant colors and intricate details, rendered in art style that mixes realism with elements of surrealism, done by artists such as Ruan Jia and Yoshitaka Amano. So in this case, interestingly, the shared prompts are not following the structure shared within the documentation. So let's go ahead and find out for ourselves how this works. So in order to use my LoRa, I'm going to need a load LoRa node. And as you can see, the load LoRa node essentially has a model and a clip input and a model and a clip output. And the reason for that is because it takes the original model that we have and it applies certain modifications to it. So first, I'm going to make sure I'm selecting the SDXL Glass LoRa that we just downloaded. And I got to figure out where I need to place this. And you can kind of intuitively tell from the inputs and the outputs that it needs to sit between this model and anywhere where the model is used in order to apply its modification. So I'm just going to connect these. You can tell intuitively just the same color output connects to the same color input. So for model and clip, and similarly for the outputs. And when I'm done, nothing else should be receiving the outputs from my load checkpoint node. So there we go. That's there. And let's use this template here. And we don't need to add any styles. And for now, let's set the denoise ratio to 1 just so that we can know what we get straight out of the LoRa before we apply image to image. Here we go. So that's a cute little dog sculpture. So let's see what happens if I actually use image to image here. That's pretty cool. So it took my original image and it turned it into a glass sculpture. Maybe we can get some variation by randomizing the seed. That's pretty nice. If I reduce the denoise rate ratio, let's see what we can get. That's very cool. So LoRa's also come with this model strength. So if I reduce this to a much lower number, you'll see that the glass effect that this LoRa introduces will be reduced as well. So now we're starting to get things that are much more similar to the original image. Let's reduce that even more. So interestingly, this seems to not reduce the glass effect so much. It's keeping more and more of the original image, which I actually kind of like. This is a very cool outcome that I was not anticipating here. I really like that. So I went back and fixed the seed again because I think we were getting some variations with the seed changing. So as you can see in this version, you're getting something with a lot more glass everywhere else where it doesn't really need it. But if I just reduce the strength of the model to, let's say, 0.3, it will kind of constrain where the glass and translucency effect is being applied. And it's actually getting a lot clearer as I reduce the strength. That's really cool. And for a final LoRa that we can play around with, let's check out this blink style. So we're gonna do the same as last time, copy the URL, Open the File Explorer, add it to our LoRAs folder. Let's make sure so this is by the same creator, and this is going to be ral-bling. So let's copy that. Okay, and for this one, I just kind of feel like this is a more appropriate photo to use. Type in my prompt, make sure I set a denoise ratio that keeps my original image a little bit, and need to update my node definition so that this bling LoRa shows up in my node, and that's it. I'm ready to run it. There you go. I think we can reduce the, so here we can either keep the denoise ratio, or maybe we can reduce the model strength. Let's see what happens if we put it at 0.6. Does it get less blingy? It does. Now it's actually applying the bling to the bulldog itself. So maybe we can both reduce this and then also the denoise ratio. So you'll notice in this case, I tried adding a top hat to the prompt, but because my denoise ratio is low, it won't be able to fit that in because it's not part of the original structure. If I increase my denoise ratio a bit, there you go. So that's it, folks. I think that's all I wanted to show you for today. We are continuing this series, and as we do, we're going to look at things that are more and more advanced. So be sure to hit like and subscribe if you enjoy this. And if you want to play around with this, make sure you head to instsd.com and you can launch these workflows at the click of a button. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.